What did you just say?
I said number 6 is the defending champion 6-0 Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, if you're looking for controversy and if you're looking for a debate and an argument, then goddamn do you have one right now.
Let's go.
Welcome everyone to a brand new Monday morning edition of the Cover 2 podcast. It's Victory Monday for my Cowboys, not so good for Nick's Eagles. But hey guys, we are going to jump right into it. First off, I am your host, Jared Smith.
And I am Nick Nenad.
All right guys, we have a great show for you today. A lot of football. We're going to start with the NFL. We're going to get into college football. We have the divisional round of the Major League Baseball playoff series starting tomorrow, and I know Nick is looking forward to that. We will get into all of those things, but you know where we're starting today. You know what this hat means. We got the America's Team shirt, baby. You know what it was. I was in LA at SoFi yesterday for the game. It was crazy. Easily, Nick, probably 70-30 Cowboys fans, right? Like the Rams had to go to a silent count at home because the Cowboys fans were affecting the Rams offense that much. They couldn't even hear each other. Cowboys defense, I'm just going to come out and say it, best defense in the league. There is none better. You can give me the Bucks, you can give me the Bills, you can give me the Packers, the Eagles. I don't want to hear it. Cowboys defense, Trayvon Diggs, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. It is the best defense in the league. Now, I do want to get into my soliloquy, but Nick, did you get a chance to watch my Cowboys yesterday? I want the unbiased perspective really quick before I go home.
Now, of course, Jared, I had on the main TV, I had my Cardinals playing the undefeated Eagles, which ended up being a pretty good game. But I did on a smaller screen have the Cowboys and Rams on. I will be honest, I'm going to go to you mainly for kind of the way the game flowed. Although I do know the beers were flowing as well, so I know it might be a little bit harder to remember. But once the score ended up being 22-10, it kind of stayed that way. So I was really focused on the Cardinals' comeback in their game against the Eagles. So I wasn't able to watch the flow, but it's pretty simple. The only touchdown the Rams scored was a play where Cooper Kupp made a play. Really, in the rest of that game, I feel as if the Rams didn't do anything. And the Cowboys shut them down to just a field goal and that touchdown. Really, really dominant performance from the Cowboys defense. And then, of course, Cooper Rush doesn't lose. He does enough to win, and it creates the conversation. How good are the damn Cowboys this year? Because, Jerry, I know you were kind of down and out on them. Very first game, Tampa comes in, shuts them down. They don't score an offense. Dak gets hurt. It's really somber. I mean, I remember being in Arizona watching the Sunday night game and then watching all the coverage Monday before Monday Night Football, and everybody was souring so bad on the Cowboys. And I remember thinking, I'm like, well, they got a good backup. They got a solid defense. Their schedule is not that bad. I think that they can be serviceable. Now, did I think that they would be 4-1? No. I didn't think they'd win every single game. It's ridiculous to think something like that. But like you mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, the defense is the thing that I was wrong about. I did not expect them to be this good. I know I've talked a lot of shit on Trayvon Diggs, saying he was kind of overrated from last year. He's not the interception machine that he is, or that he was last year. Some of those were lucky, which I do agree with still. But nonetheless, he is a top-tier corner in the NFL, and the rest of that defense is really performing. I put their defense in the, in my daily fantasy league last week. The sacks are there. The interceptions are there. They obviously get the touchdown. Whew. There. I think the Cowboys are pretty good this year. What do you think?
Pretty good. Pretty good. With a backup quarterback, and they have gone 4-0 since Dak Prescott is out. Pretty good is not the correct word. Great is what they are, is what this Cowboys team is. They are great, and they are going to get healthy. Now, whether Dak Prescott comes back this upcoming week against the Eagles or the following week against the Lions is still to be determined, but they're going to get him back. They just recently got Michael Gallup back. They are eventually going to get Tyron Smith their all-pro future Hall of Fame left tackle back. So this team is going to get healthy as the season progresses, which only is bad news for the other 31 teams in the league. Now, to get to this game on Sunday, it literally started off with the first series of the game. The Rams have to, oh wow, Nick, you have you got a friend over
Yes,
there?
I do. Yes, I do. I knew at least one interruption would happen. This is my girlfriend's cat, Haven. It will bug me most of this podcast. So if you guys hear meows, it's her needing attention. She usually walks across the screen as well, so I might be blocked out. I will not edit it. Haven will have her due here, and will be able to be on the Cover 2 podcast as a special guest today. We didn't mention it because we weren't sure if she would make an appearance, but she's over here. So yeah, if you see tails, legs, ears, heads, that is the cat Haven in the background. But Jared, continue about the Cowboys. You were talking about how you think they're one of the best teams in the NFL.
Oh yeah, and first of all, good to know that if they hear a meow, it's not you. It's a legitimate cat, not you meowing. I just need to clear that up. Yeah, because we would have to have a separate conversation if it was you meowing. No, listen. First drive of the game, and the Cowboys force a sack fumble. DeMarcus Lawrence picks it up and takes it into the end zone, just like that. Before the Cowboys offense can even get on the field, it's 6-0 Cowboys, not 7-0, because their new long snapper apparently missed the sign and hiked the ball before the guy was even ready to catch it. So there was a little up and down there, but still the game was right away. The Dallas Cowboys defense came in and said, we are here to dominate, right? Like, we know that our offense is not going to be explosive, and the defense is going to have to carry it. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, just like you mentioned, Trayvon Diggs, those guys from the first snap of the game to the last snap of the game were causing havoc and literally just made the Rams offense just like they never got into a rhythm. They never felt like they were comfortable. There were obviously a couple plays here and there where they made great plays. Cooper Kupp, listen, I'm sorry, the dude is like unguardable, right? I don't care if you're Deion Sanders, like Cooper Kupp is just simply unguardable, and the way that they try to line him up and put him in great positions, that is one thing that I will give Sean McVay a lot of credit for, is that you don't know where Cooper Kupp is going to line up. He will line up in different formations on every single play. So he made that spectacular one-handed catch. Like, half the Cowboys defense thought that he was either incomplete or he was already tackled, and he ends up running in for like a 75-yard touchdown. So that was amazing. I give him all the credit in the world. But other than that play, Dallas really didn't give up any big plays. And like I said, they forced Matthew Stafford to be uncomfortable, moving around out of the pocket all over the place. I know Stafford isn't completely 100% healthy, but still, this defensive line got after him all day long, and the defense was the story. Cooper Rush, if I'm not mistaken, he threw for 102 yards in the entire game. 102 yards, 10 for 16, 102 yards, no touchdowns. More importantly, no interceptions, right? Tony Pollard, who once again is still technically the backup running back to Ezekiel Elliott, had one of the biggest offensive plays of the day for the Cowboys when he broke that like 50-yard touchdown run. Listen, I love Zeke, and I'm glad that we have a 1-2 punch, but Tony Pollard needs the ball more. Like, simply, the Cowboys' 3 longest touchdown plays of the year have all been by Tony Pollard. Like, Tony Pollard simply needs the ball more. Like, I don't care if he gets, I think he had, what did he have? He only had 8 carries, and then I don't know how many receiving targets he had, but he needs more. He needs to be in the double-digit carry category, and I think that will continue to increase, right, as the season goes on. Nothing against Ezekiel Elliott. He just doesn't have that burst that Tony Pollard brings. And to be honest, if I'm a defense, as of this moment, I'm more scared of Tony Pollard than I am of Ezekiel Elliott. But listen, I'm not. That's the only negative I'm going to say. Listen, my boys are 4-1. I did not expect them to be 4-1. And to be quite honest, I really wasn't even sure that they were going to win this game, because I thought Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and this defense was going to have more an effect on this game. I think they had a couple sacks, but really the Cowboys offensive line was able to neutralize, for the most part, the Rams defensive front. And the Cowboys, like I said, they made just enough plays on offense, and their defense and their special teams shined as well. They also had a first quarter punt block, which set them up with great field position. So overall, a great team win. My Cowboys are 4-1. I'm happy. We got a Sunday night matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football. So that is going to be the game of the week. I will talk about that in a little bit. But hey, man, anything else you want to say about my boys?
Yeah, well, no, I wanted to bring up that game because I think, you know, this is the time. If Dak is healthy, you have to bring him back for this game because the Eagles are 5-0. The Cowboys are 4-1. Now the Eagles will lose games this season. I think the Cardinals defense showed that a good defense can stop the attack the Eagles were putting forward. The first 4 games, the Eagles end up with only 20 points and really didn't do much in the second half, much like a lot of teams do against the Cardinals this season. But you can't have Cooper Rush throwing for less than 200 yards, and you can't still be deciding that Zeke needs more touches than Pollard. You need to have your number one game plan because you're going on the road to Philly. You're not playing in Dallas, and that crowd won't have 60-40 like the Rams does. It will be 110% Philadelphia maniacs, rooting on the Cowboys or rooting against the Cowboys. So I think you bring Dak back this game if he's healthy. There's no more undefeated Cooper Rush, all that stuff. The defense will hold the Eagles, to less than probably 24 points or something like that. It will be most likely a low-scoring game. So if you can get Dak in there to, lead the offense to more than what Cooper Rush can do, I think this is the time to bring him back. And then at that point, you have the Lions, you have the Bears, you have the Packers, teams that have struggling offenses. After that, I think the Cowboys could be, it's time to bring him back, and this is the important game. You can beat a team like the Lions. You can beat a team like the Bears. I think they can beat a team like the Packers with their lack of offensive weapons, especially at wide receiver. But this Eagles team is pretty well-rounded, and you need to bring your full attack for him back. If Dak's hurt or gets hurt in the game and needs to take a couple weeks off after that, that's fine. But you need him for this game. You have Cooper Rush on the bench. I say bring Dak back. That's all I'll say else. I think this defense is very, very good. They have not – I do think they played a little bit of struggling offenses this year in the Bengals and the Rams as their main wins. But I think they'll still do enough after seeing what the Cardinals did to the Eagles. The Cardinals defense is not as good as the Cowboys. It's not bad, but it's not as good as the Cowboys. And it was able to shut down Jalen Hurts. The only touchdowns in the game for the Eagles were 2 one-yard sneaks. So really, there was no big plays in that game at all from the Eagles. So again, I think the Cowboys can do the same thing if they can get Jalen Hurts, and stop him and rush him. That's the way to go. So that's all I'll say. I think you need to bring Dak back. That's the only thing the Cowboys need to do if he's healthy. If he's not ready, you do what you can do. But if he's ready, absolutely 110% bring Dak Prescott back. Jerry, any other thoughts on the Cowboys, or should we move to the Denver Broncos?
Listen, I can sit here and we can take this entire hour show and talk about the Cowboys if you want to, but let's move on. I guess there were some other games that happened yesterday and some other topics that we need to discuss. So yes, we can reluctantly move on, but don't be. Your boy's happy. Cowboys, America's team. Yeah, we do.
It's okay. We'll be talking about the Cowboys next podcast to start off. We already know that. It's the biggest game, Eagles Cowboys. So we'll be talking about them, whether it be Monday or Tuesday. 100%, I can guarantee that we'll be starting off with Eagles and Cowboys. So it's okay. Just
okay. Well, that makes me
wait about 7 days, 8 days. Watch your Cowboys on Sunday, and we'll be talking about whether it be negative or positive. Denver Broncos. You guys all watched Thursday Night Football. It was one of the worst football games of the past decade. 12-9, overtime, no touchdowns. Your boys predicted this with our poll on Twitter saying, will there be any touchdowns in this game? The reason we asked that is because there was a chance that might not happen. And a lot of you didn't believe it, and it ended up happening. So we're going to give a little shout out to ourselves for acing that. But came out after the game, I think the bigger news is that Russell Wilson was hurt going into that game. Now, he has a partially torn lat muscle. And they're saying he can play on it. And, Jared, a lot of people talk shit on Russ. He actually was pretty impressive against the Raiders. He has a rushing touchdown. He throws for 2 touchdowns. And he comes back in this stinker on Thursday night. In my opinion, after hearing the injury, and I'm going to get your thoughts in a second too, I think Russell Wilson was heavily impaired that game. And because it's almost nearly impossible to recover from an injury like that on 3 days rest, I think this performance by the Broncos was simply a product of Thursday night football and not necessarily indicative of what will go on the rest of the season. Now, I know they've struggled on offense already, and it was before Russell tore the lat against the Raiders. But my opinion is I think the Broncos will come out next week against the Chargers and have a much better performance, and all this shit talk on Russ will be a little bit less because of that injury. What do you think?
First off, obviously, we hate to see this injury, right? And we knew, right? Like something was up, right? Russell Wilson is just off. He's not himself. We understand that first year in a new system, first year head coach, first year new ownership, right? There's a lot of firsts going on with the Denver Broncos organization. But still, like Russell Wilson's a Super Bowl champion, been to 2 Super Bowls. Like he's a leader. There's a reason why the Broncos organization gave him $250 million, and it's definitely not to play like this, right? So we like had a little inkling that something was going on behind the scenes, and we come to find out he obviously has that torn lat in his shoulder. Now, I'm not going to use that as an excuse for Russ, because one thing that isn't torn are Russell Wilson's 2 legs, which he knows how to use very well from his days in Seattle when he didn't have an offensive line and he was running for his life half the time. So the fact that Russell Wilson was not using his legs more, especially knowing that he has a hurt throwing shoulder, to me is a little kind of dumbfounded. Like even on that 4th down play where they had a chance to score and win the game, like Russ, roll out to the right and either run it in or at least, buy time to extend the play. Like he was trying to just sit in the pocket, and I'm saying, Russ, that's not really your game. Like, yes, you are a great deep ball thrower, you're accurate, but a part of your game is using your legs and your athleticism, and that's simply something that I didn't really see much of Thursday night against a Colts defense that was missing their best player in Shaquille Leonard, right? So I just didn't understand why himself, like whether it was the play calling, and they weren't calling a lot of bootlegs or something like that. But I'm like, if I'm him, you are so great because you can extend plays. And we simply weren't seeing that. So I don't want to hear the lat as an excuse, because if it was that bad, then he should have not played, right? Like if you're going to play knowing that you're injured, I don't want to hear about your injury. Okay. It's either bad enough to where you don't play and you sit out. You have to like take yourself out of the equation and say, if I play, I'm going to be hurting my team. Right. But in this instance, he chose to play. I don't want to hear about the lat. You simply just were not good enough, right? Like you throw for 274 yards and 2 interceptions. The first interception, okay, you can kind of live with. The second interception, first of all, they probably should have just kicked the field goal, but they choose to keep the offense on the field, go for it on 4th down, and you're trying Stephon Gilmore, who maybe isn't the defensive player of the year anymore, but he's still a damn good corner, right? So you try him, it's an interception in the end zone, and then the Colts take it to overtime, and we know what happens there. So I think there's a lot of things going on in this organization because, like I said, there are a lot of firsts, and I think people don't necessarily want to ruffle the feathers a lot. Like Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett are still probably figuring themselves out, so maybe they don't have that comfortability factor to go up to him and just say, "No, man, like keep me in the fucking game." Right? Like I don't know if they have that relationship yet to where they can be completely and 100% honest with each other. They're probably trying to feel each other out still. And it's completely showing on the field. So you also, on top of that, last week you lose your star running back Javonte Williams, so torn ACL, so he's out. You've got fumbling Gordon in the game, who literally just is in his own head right now and used to fumble. So yeah, there's a lot of problems with this Broncos offense. It starts with Russell Wilson, and like I said, if your arm is too injured to play, then take yourself out. Right? I get it. You're the leader, you're the captain, but what we saw on Thursday night against a not 100% healthy Colts defense is not acceptable for the Denver Broncos, right? And so you either rest up and it heals and gets better quickly, or take yourself out, because another 9-point performance on Monday night against the Chargers is not going to cut it. And I actually disagree with you. I think the Chargers defense is a lot better than what the Colts defense was. And I think that the Broncos are actually going to have a tougher time scoring against a better defense than the Chargers next Monday.
I mean, that's fair, Jared. You make a lot of good points. I just think that, he's now going to have 10 days to do the proper recovery. He's got a lot of money, too. So he can spend his money on getting back to as close to 100% as he possibly can. I just think that because of that injury, that was the reason that they lost on Thursday. But you make a good point as well, saying, put in the backup, right? Whoever it is, I think it's Brett Rippon. I think is the backup. Put him in. Have a game plan for him, even though it's on 3 days' notice. You can't be throwing an injured guy out there. So Russ trying to be a leader, trying to step up, I think it backfired a little bit. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Although, Chargers did give up 28 points to the Cleveland Browns this weekend. So that defense has so far not lived up to what it was built. When we look at the Cowboys, they're doing better. Chargers not as good. So, it'll be an interesting game. I think it's Monday too. So I think is it Monday or Sunday? Let me check this really quick.
I know they got the Monday game.
That's 11 days.
Yeah, it's like the third or fourth time this season that they've been in the national TV spotlight, and they've stunk every single time. Like, I'm sorry, we need the flex scheduling right now. Like, no offense, Alex Silva, we love you and we want you back on the show, but your Denver Broncos don't deserve to be in the Monday night spotlight anymore. They have not shown that they are a good enough team. I wish the flex scheduling could come because we could move that Chargers Broncos game to a 1 o'clock Sunday slot, and we could put an actual worthy game in that Monday night slot.
Hey, no, fair. But all I'm saying, 11 days. So it's actually even one more day than I thought to get fully healthy, to get a game plan going. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's move on. Let's move from Thursday night all the way to 6:30 in the morning in London. The New York Giants played the Green Bay Packers, and a very, very surprising result to most happened in this game. The Giants get the big victory and move to 4-1. Jared, I'll toss it off to the resident Cowboys fan here. We're not going to be talking about the Eagles on this podcast anymore. We're not going to be talking about the Commanders because they're the worst team in football. But we are going to talk about the New York Giants. 4-1. I know it's not a true road game, but they go on the road to London and beat Aaron Rodgers legitimately. Daniel Jones is banged up. They're missing multiple receivers. They got Richie James out there as the number one guy. Saquon does his thing. Is this team better than people are saying? Or is it just a fluke 4-1? I want you to answer it as a biased Dallas Cowboys fan.
They are better. They are. They are better than what most people thought coming into the season. They're better than what I thought coming into the season. But it's because of the coaching staff and mainly head coach Brian Daboll. To me, it is not because of the players. I love Saquon Barkley. He's easily their best, not only offensive weapon, but I think best player on their team. But I do not trust Daniel Jones a lick, and I definitely don't trust any of their backups. So as long as Daniel Jones continues to be the New York Giants starting quarterback when healthy, I will assume that this Giants team will not be able to reach new heights. I will say that Brian Daboll right now deserves to be the front runner for head coach of the year because of what he has done with this program, right? This Giants team went from winning 4 games last year to now winning 4 games in 5 weeks this year. Okay, so that is like the turnaround and how difficult that is to do that in the NFL. It's almost impossible in a 1-year span, right? So I think we have to give head coach Daboll a lot of credit for the philosophies and the things that he's brought into this team. Because frankly, it's a lot of the same players. Like obviously you've drafted certain guys and you bring in some guys in free agency, but it's a lot of the same guys from last year's team that absolutely sucked and shit the bed. So I think they have just been able to turn things around with scheme and the way that they play. And I'll be honest with you, there was absolutely no way in hell that I thought the Giants were going to travel to London and beat the Packers, right? First of all, the Packers have one of the best defenses in the league. And then you're going up against Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, they don't have Devontae Adams and they don't have the receiving core that they used to. But we do have to give the Giants credit. But still, I'm not threatened by the Giants because Daniel Jones is still their quarterback. I do like their coaching staff, and I think that will, obviously help them in the next coming years. But I don't think that this team is a legitimate threat. It's great that they're 4-1. Good for them. Give them a cookie, golf clap. But I think as this season goes on, we will see them start to take a dip, and we will see who this New York Football Giants team really is.
Interesting take. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, though, Jared, because you make the good point about Brian Dable being the reason this Giants turnaround has happened. It's pretty clear, right? When you have a good game plan for a somewhat average quarterback in Daniel Jones, he can compete and he can win. That's why guys like Nick Foles have won a Super Bowl before, why Trent Dilfer has won a Super Bowl, why Joe Flacco has won a Super Bowl, because those guys were mid. Okay, they were mid quarterbacks. That's what Daniel Jones is. And we talked a lot of shit about him. I came on here on the podcast to preview the NFL season and said that this team gave up on this year because Daniel Jones is the quarterback. What I had forgot was that Brian Dable's a damn genius, and he's turned it around. I think they're only going to get healthier. So the same comments you make about the Dallas Cowboys, they getting healthier, they're going to get better. These teams have the same damn record here. You're being a little bit of a hypocrite, and I understand because you're biased and you don't like the New York Giants, but I have to disagree. I don't know if this team will fall off near the end. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to beat the Cowboys or they're going to go in and beat the Eagles, but those are two of the best teams in football, right? Easier schedule in the NFC East. Just saying, give this team a little bit more credit. Now, let's turn it around and look at the Green Bay Packers, okay? Dude, I think this team's we can see a little Mesa. We can see a little plateau with this team. They should have won that ball game yesterday. Giants played great. It's two good teams playing. But the Packers should have won that football game in London. And they didn't. And it just seems like this offense is not going to get far enough with their receiving core. And they need Odell, right? I'll throw it out there. The defense is solid. Their offense is average because you have Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and AJ Dillon, and then horrible receiving core. Christian Watson got hurt in this game as well. I think they need to make a move or this team isn't a contender at all. What do you think, Jared?
They do. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I am going to this front office every single day and saying, why haven't we signed Odell Beckham Jr. yet? Right now, listen, if I'm Odell, I'm not necessarily running to sign in Green Bay because the weather is about to turn and get pretty damn cold. So, what does Odell want, right? Odell has won a Super Bowl with the Rams last year, albeit he gets injured in that game. But is Odell chasing another Super Bowl? Or is it more important that he's close to his family? Or is it more important that he gets money? What's the priority for him? If it's chasing a Super Bowl, obviously catching passes from Aaron Rodgers is a pretty safe bet. He would just have to be able to deal with the cold and the weather and all that stuff. If he wants to stay in LA, obviously there's other opportunities outside of football. So I think that it will be interesting. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to the front office every single day and saying, I don't care what it takes. I don't care how much money it costs. I'll take a pay cut. We need Odell Beckham Jr. in here because clearly right now, like you mentioned, this receiving core is not what it was last year. Allen Lazard, I'm sorry, you're not a number one wide receiver. You are a number two at best. Okay, so they clearly don't have that. But the thing that kind of baffles me from the game yesterday in London is in the fourth quarter, they kind of just went away from the running game. And not to say that they have a fantastic running game, but when you have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, a pretty damn good 1-2 punch, they just completely went away from it, right? The Giants defense kind of knew that Rodgers was either throwing to Lazard, and that was pretty much it, right? I think there was 2 or 3 batted passes on the Packers' final possession because the Giants defense just knew where Rodgers was going. And you completely, when a defense knows that you have eliminated either the run or the pass and you're just going to stick with one, that makes it so much more easier. I don't care what quarterback you're playing. So to me, I look at Matt LaFleur and I say, you're part of the reason for this loss because of your lack of play calling and lack of kind of diversity, right? You just completely abandon the run and go to the passing game, which typically when you have Aaron Rodgers, that's always not the worst thing, but still you got to have a little bit of ebb and flow, and they completely went away from that. So you have to give the Giants credit, but I am a little concerned with the Packers, one, because their lack of receiving depth and just lack of having a guy, right, that can just go out and make a play anymore, right? You got Randall Cobb, who's a little bit longer in the tooth, Allen Lazard, who's a number 2 receiver, You mentioned Watson went down with an injury. They don't really have a guy that you can say, you know what, 3rd and 7, I need him to make a catch that I can truly trust. So that is where I kind of struggle with this Packers team. Their defense is good, but when you look around the league at some of these other teams, I really don't know if Aaron Rodgers, at this state in his career, with what he currently has to work with, can get this team over the top and over the hump like he potentially would have in previous years.
Yeah, and I think the way to do that is, like you're saying, that number one option. It doesn't need to be Devontae Adams. It doesn't need to be DeAndre Hopkins. It doesn't need to be, insert number one wide receiver. But it can be a guy that's a really, really great wide receiver. And like I said, I point to Odell Beckham Jr. because he was the reason, amongst a couple other things, that the Rams won the Super Bowl last year, had the Super Bowl run. He gets hurt in the Super Bowl, but he dominated against the Cardinals. He played really well against the 49ers, you know what I'm saying, in the playoffs. And down the stretch at the end of the season, for them last year in 2021, he was really, really good. And so you hope he returns from the injury, right, as a guy. But, you need that guy. I'll throw out another name, and we're going to talk about this team a little bit later in the podcast. And really not this team, but a decision they made. C.J. Moore from the Carolina Panthers. There's rumors this morning that he wants to go somewhere else. He's on the trading block now. So that's a guy, maybe not as good as Odell, but another option. You have him, Lazard, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. You're talking about a way better team. And we're not talking about, the trashness of the Packers wide receiving core if they have C.J. Moore or if they have Odell Beckham Jr. We're saying maybe they're not as good as last year, but this team with the best quarterback in the world can compete because you give the best quarterback in the world a top option. It's undefeated, So interesting. It'll be interesting to watch these two teams down the stretch, who ends up with the better record. But yeah, I think the Packers need to look at C.J. Moore. They need to look at Odell Beckham Jr. They need to go and get a guy. Just being honest there. All right, let's move to another quarterback that some consider to be one of the best in the league, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you watched football on Sunday, I know there was a lot of games. You might not have tuned in to Tampa Bay versus Atlanta. That's not the sexiest matchup, but one of the biggest moments of Sunday's games did happen in this game, and it was a roughing the passer call on Tom Brady. You're seeing it right here on the podcast, overlapped in post editing. You're seeing it right here. Now, Jared, we've seen this play. We don't need to see it like the viewers are seeing it. I personally think this was the worst roughing the passer call in the history of the National Football League. About top 5 in bad penalty calls ever.
Yeah, no, this is easily, as far as roughing the passer goes, the worst call in NFL history. And I don't care that it wasn't a playoff game. Usually, a lot of times, if it's in the playoff situation, something that has more meaning, it will kind of climb up the chain. This is easily the worst, right? And the fact that it is against Tom Brady, who is the GOAT, who is the greatest quarterback of all time, you kind of also have to scratch your head and say, well, did they make that call because it's Tom Brady, right? If this was Geno Smith, no offense. If this was Jameis Winston, no offense. Would they have made that same call? That is the most routine tackle. I won't even say sack. Routine tackle that a defender can make, right? He didn't go high. He didn't hit Tom Brady in the head. He didn't go low. He didn't go at Brady's knees. He went literally for his middle section, which is where the NFL wants defenders to target, right? He didn't even lead with his helmet. He wrapped Tom Brady up, spun him around, and then took him down. That is literally the definition of how you are supposed to tackle. I guarantee if you go back and look at every other NFL game from Sunday, from the London game to the Sunday Night Football game in Baltimore, you probably saw 100 other tackles just like that. And I guarantee you not one of those got called for a roughing the passer or any type of misconduct or anything. And it's just, to me, it's baffling because what is a defender supposed to do? The rules are already in favor of the offense so that the offenses can score more points because it's more sexy, it's more fun, and defenders are already out left to dry. Like at this point, if that is what referees are going to do, and if that is what the NFL wants, take the pads off and just put flags on them, because that is absolutely ridiculous. And then the fact that the referee post game comes out and stands behind his call, that guy, number one, needs to be checked for weed. He was high. Number one, he was on some type of drug. And number two, he doesn't need to be refereeing in this league anymore. Like, I'm sorry, if you are truly going to stand behind that call and say that you made that call and you believe that that was the right call to make on that, then that guy needs to be fired. Like I said, he didn't go towards Tom Brady's head. He didn't go low to his knees and try to take his knees out. It was the most routine of all routine tackles, right? And now we're also not saying that the Falcons would have won the game. It would have been fourth down and it would have forced the Buccaneers to punt. Did have momentum because on the Falcons' previous offensive series, they drove down, scored a touchdown, and got the 2-point conversion. So in theory, you would have given the Falcons at least the opportunity to come down and tie the game with a touchdown. The fact that that was negated on this flag is horrendous. Even Tom Brady in his post-game press conference, when he was asked about that, he simply said, "I don't throw the flags," which in his head, he truly knows that that was bullshit and they got a lucky call. So I think the NFL needs to do some hard looking and searching at not only their playbook and how they call and rule games, but each referee. Like, I know that the referees get graded on a weekly basis. This referee, like, an F isn't even a worse grade. Like, I would give him the worst possible grade ever, and he would at least not be assigned a game this upcoming Sunday. You would at least be like suspended for a week without pay. That's what he truly deserves.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know when the referee made the comments. I didn't hear about that the referee made comments about his call. Yeah. I didn't know we were doing that in the NFL now. I hope we do, because that would be great to ask these guys and grill them after the game. But yeah, I don't know if you saw the sack on video, because I'm not gonna kill the guy for he saw it with his eyes and whatever he saw, thought it was too violent and hasn't rechecked it. But if you've seen the video, bro, you're a moron then. It's just that simple. You shouldn't be refereeing high school games, because that's not a high school call either. There's something wrong with your eyes. You're blind, whatever you want to call it. Nah. It's again, if you watched it on video, nobody agrees that was roughing the passer. Nobody on earth. Fucking this cat doesn't agree with the call either. Okay? You didn't watch the game. I just showed you the video a second ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's unreal, Jared. Now, I want to bring this up because you made a good point. I was going to make it too, that this would have been fourth down, and that the Falcons would have, the Falcons could have came back. They were down by 6, right? They could have came back and won this game. Not that it would have mattered in the playoff race for the Falcons, but it definitely would have mattered for the Buccaneers. And Jared, when you look at their games this year, 19 points versus the Cowboys. Good defense, right? Not a big deal. 19 points. 20 points versus the Saints. 12 points versus the Packers. 21 versus the Atlanta Falcons. 31 against the Chiefs, but most of that was garbage time. They really were up there in the teens most of the game. Jared Smith, we give all this shit to Russell Wilson. If they go and they lose that game to the Falcons, which they easily could have, if this moron didn't make this call, same record as the Denver Broncos. Why are we giving as much shit to the Tampa Bay offense? To Todd Bowles, to Byron Leftwich, to Bruce Arians, right? I don't know if Bruce has any influence. I want to throw him in there. Why? Why are the Buccaneers getting this pass? Because they have Tom Brady. I mean, like, it disgusts me, because it's like, just because it's Tom Brady, he's getting these calls. This team in the media is not getting they're not giving this team shit. Why is Russ getting all this shit when Tom Brady's playing equally as bad? Playing bad too.
You answered your own question, because it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady is going to get certain calls that other guys aren't. Now, they may not be consistent throughout a game, but in certain situations, in a critical moment in fourth down that has the potential to decide or sway a game one way or the other, the status of Tom Brady is going to come into effect, right? And all eyes are going to be on him, obviously. And if you eat onions and then you breathe on Tom Brady wrong, you're going to get arrested, handcuffed, and sent to jail. You're not even going to get a trial. You're just going straight to jail, right? Like that. That's pretty much what it is. You can't like breathe on Tom Brady. You can't look at him. You definitely can't touch him. It's just put flags on him at this point because that was simply ridiculous. And like we're saying, we're not saying that the Falcons would have won the game, but it would have given them an opportunity. And I think that is all you can ask for is an opportunity. And the referees took that opportunity away from the Falcons.
Yeah, in a non-garbage time play, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had not scored more than 21 points. That's not good in the NFL. Sorry. They have a good defense, and it's fine, but they don't have Cooper Rush as their quarterback, no disrespect, right? They don't have, Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan as their quarterback. They have Tom Brady. We give all this shit to Russell Wilson. The guy's hurt, in that last game, right? Was hurt against the Raiders and the Chiefs. There's no excuse. I mean, I know there's been injuries on offense, but there's really no excuse for Tom Brady at this point, right? Now, we outlined that maybe the divorce is a reason. Go back and check our discussion about that because it definitely still applies. Maybe Giselle paid off the referee to save Tom Brady's body a little bit, right? But nonetheless, there's something wrong with this team. Now, speaking of something wrong with teams, the Carolina Panthers, who are in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers division, we won't talk about this long. They've decided to make the first head coach firing of the year. There was a list piling up. Jared Smith, Matt Rule was on it. Cliff Kingsbury was on it. Nathaniel Hackett's been put on it. Matt Rule goes first. The all firing game between Cliff and Matt Rule did not go very well in Matt Rule's favor. And then they lose this next week, get killed by the San Francisco 49ers at home. Jared Smith, it's the only question I asked for you. There's two questions really. Was Matt Rule's firing justified? Or was this just simply this team was not talented enough and Matt Rule's being used as a scapegoat?
No, it's justified. And listen, how do I say this? I don't like when coaches get fired after their first or second year. I don't care what level of sport it is, because when you bring in a new head coach, and even though we talked about this with the Denver Broncos earlier and Nathaniel Hackett, it's his first year, right? So not only was it Matt Rule's when he got hired, was he a first-time NFL head coach? He never coached in the NFL before, but you also have to implement your own strategies, your own schemes, your own philosophies. And then you also have to, between the draft and free agency, bring in your own guys to fit your system. So it usually takes 2 to 3 years before you can really figure out if a certain coach is right for your team, right? Now, I do like that the Carolina Panthers did, let Matt Rule have that opportunity and have that time to figure out whether he was good or not. I don't necessarily agree with the contract that the Panthers organization gave him. It was like 7 years and like $62 million or something ridiculous like that. That to me is only reserved for once you have proven yourself, right? Because last time I checked, players don't get those types of contracts unless they prove them. So the fact that Matt Rule got that contract, after really not doing much or proving that he can take the Panthers deep into the playoffs, that was a little suspect to me. But this is deserving because he has had multiple years to prove his worth and show that he can win games in this league. And he clearly cannot, right? Now, I'm not saying that he can't coach at all, because obviously he did a great job in college. He turned that Temple program around, and then he went to Baylor and turned that program around as well. And maybe he needs to go back to college, right? Maybe the NFL is just not for him. But to me, this is well justified. I don't have a problem with this. This Panthers team is awful. Baker Mayfield is not the guy. Baker Mayfield is now supposedly injured with an ankle, going to miss a couple weeks. So this team is completely in shambles. Like you just mentioned a minute ago, and I didn't even know this. Apparently, CJ Moore could potentially be on the trading block. So, I mean, if I'm Christian McCaffrey, I'm kind of looking around and I'm being like, can I get on the trading block? Like, I don't want to be there. If you're Carolina, this seems like a blow up process that is going to be a complete rebuild. Obviously, you need a quarterback because right now it doesn't seem like you have one, or at least a reliable one. And Christian McCaffrey is kind of your only dude, right? Like, if I'm a Panthers fan, the only reason I'm going to a Carolina game at home is to watch Christian McCaffrey. That's pretty much it. So this team has a lot of holes, and it seems like they're going into complete rebuild mode. They also did not only just fire their head coach, Matt Rule, they fired their defensive coordinator and their special teams coordinator, right? So it's like a huge fire sale. I think their offensive coordinator is the only guy that was sticking around, I believe. You got to check me on that. But yeah, it's bad times in Carolina. Would not want to be in that situation right now.
No, I wouldn't either. And I was in that situation a couple of years ago as a Cardinals fan because their new head coach is Steve Wilkes, who ran quite possibly the worst offense ever in football under his reign as the Cardinals head coach and ushered in the Kyler Murray era, essentially. So, again, it ain't going to get much better on the offensive side of the ball with Steve Wilkes running a defensive guy. And then now you take out Baker Mayfield and put in P.J. Walker for a couple weeks until Sam Darnold can come back. His team's in trouble. They're in trouble. They're not going to have a very good season in that top three for worst teams this year. Jared, just want to give a little shout out to ourselves again because we played a game called Good or Not Good last week, and we were pretty spot on as far as results that happened this week. Go back and look at that segment. It still applies. When we talk about the Rams and the 49ers, we said, Jared, you said the Rams weren't good. I said the 49ers were good. The Rams were not good this week. The 49ers were really good this week. Jared, when you talked about your Cowboys and I talked about the Giants, same thing. I said the Giants are a pretty good team once they get healthy. You said the Cowboys are good. They really perform. And I'll say this about my Cardinals too. I said when the Cardinals are healthy and they get DeAndre Hopkins back, this team could be good. They showed flashes of it yesterday in the second half. They need to figure out the first half. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that. But in the second half, that team rolled like it was last year in the first half of last year's season. And because you had a healthier Rondale Moore. You had Zach Ertz healthy. And James Conner wasn't even in. So really, really impressive, from us picking these games. I think the only one we were a little off on was the Bengals and the Ravens, because it seems like we kind of switched up on that one a little bit. We might have been a little wrong about both those teams, but nonetheless, we did a good job. And Jared, I talked a lot. I'm going to talk a lot more, so I'm going to let you take it away. Tell the people what segment we're doing next.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we're switching over to some college football. Is that correct, or is that where we're going next?
Oh, yeah, we're switching over to college football.
Yeah. And if you guys watched the show last week, we kind of did a new segment where Nick will introduce his top 15 college football rankings, not the AP, right? Not the college coaches poll, but Nick Nenad's top 15 college football rankings, which he feels are the best out there. So without further ado, Nick Nenad, the floor is yours. We are also going to go, 15 to 10 or 15 to 11, 10 to 6, 5 to 1. So we're going to break it down, right? We're not just going to do 15 to 1. We're going to break it down in little pieces so y'all can digest those 5, and then we'll go on to the next 5. But let's start with 15 to 11. Nick Nenad, give me your top 15 college football teams in the country.
Let me say a couple things before I start. Number one, there's 2 new additions to my top 15 than there was last week. You can try to guess before I say them what they're going to be. Honorable mentions. These are the teams that did not make the top 15. So if you're wondering if these teams are going to be in there, they're not. Honorable mentions: Mississippi State at 5-1, Kansas at 5-1 after they lost to TCU in what was one of the best games of the year on Saturday, and then Texas At 4-2, really close up there. Quinn Ewers comes back and they beat the shit out of Oklahoma this weekend. So those teams will not be in the top 15. There was rumors in Cover 2 podcast land of maybe Texas landing at that number 15 spot. But when I did my due diligence, when I did my research, didn't happen. So without further ado, 15 through 11. Number 15, Wake Forest at 5-1. Number 14, NC State at 5-1. Number 13, the Oregon Ducks at 5-1. Number 12, Penn State at 5-0. And number 11, TCU at 5-0. Wake Forest, NC State, I believe the same from last week. Wake Forest with a very easy win against Army. And NC State, close game against Florida State, only 19 points. But their star quarterback, Devin Leary, got hurt halfway through that game. And it was a struggle with their backup to get points. The defense really stepped up, and they legitimately won that game. Florida State threw an interception at the end of the game, and NC State does not deserve to move down or have a significant chunk taken off their record. I actually think it was a pretty impressive win, to be honest. Oregon at number 13, easy win against U of A. You're probably wondering TCU and Penn State. TCU, they have 4 easy wins and a really big road win against Kansas that happened this last Saturday. Kansas, they may end up being 9-3 or 10-2 this season, but they're a really, really good football team. And to go into a sold-out crowd in Lawrence and go back and forth, Max Duggan and the boys got it done. I think their wide receiver had like 270 yards or something like that in this game too. Really, really impressive for TCU. And with Penn State, it's 4 easy wins. And their biggest win this season is a road win against Purdue. When you match up the schedules, I also think TCU's easier wins were better than Penn State. So there's no reason Penn State should be ahead. I think TCU's talent is either right there or even better. So, that's my 15 through 11. Jared, any comments on these standings so far?
I hate doing this. I really don't like agreeing with you. I will find any little nick and cranny or crack in your argument, in your discussion that I can nitpick at. But if I'm being honest with you right now, and I'm looking at the actual AP top 25 compared to what your top 15 are, I can't really disagree. I do like where TCU is slated. I think that out of this this 15 to 11, I like TCU the most. You're right about Penn State and your argument there. Oregon, they played against U of A garbage, right? That's not really anything to me. The NC State quarterback going down is a big one, and I think that's more for the rest of the season, right? Like, how long is he going to be out? That offense was pretty atrocious once he did leave. So NC State, this might be the last time that we see them in the top 15, depending on that quarterback status. So good for you for still grinding out that win, but are they going to be able to sustain if their quarterback is potentially out for a long period of time? But other than that, man, there's not a whole lot of that I can say other than good job on 15 to 11.
Yeah, and I'll be honest too. Just 2 comments about 14 and 15. NC State and Wake Forest it's so close. They both have the bad wins this year. I thought ECU, Eastern Carolina, should have beat NC State earlier this year. Liberty could have beaten Wake Forest, and both their losses to Clemson were kind of cancel each other out. So really almost 14A and 14B there, and maybe you slot in a Mississippi State or a Kansas at number 15, but nonetheless, these are the 15 best teams. But both those teams could be ranked 14. Really, really hard. And NC State plays number 18 Syracuse this weekend. They're undefeated. They just have not played enough opponents, the quality of opponents to be up in the top 15. But undefeated team. It's at Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. And if they don't have their quarterback, most likely they move down with a loss. Similar to Kentucky, who had a loss this weekend. If you guys didn't know, their star quarterback, Will Levis, the possible number 1 pick in the draft, didn't even play in the game, and their backup was not good. So that's the reason they lost to South Carolina too. If you don't pay attention to college football as much, they're a 4-2 team. All right, 10 through 16. Jared, this is where it's going to get really fun. This is going to get. I don't even think top 5 is that good this week. But 10 through 6 is maybe my fun one here.
Okay.
Number 10 from the city of Los Angeles, the USC Trojans at 6-0. Number 9, Ole Miss 6-0. Number 8, the UCLA Bruins coming off a giant victory, a dominant victory over the Utah Utes at the Rose Bowl. Number 7, Oklahoma State at 5-0. And number 6, the defending national champion, Georgia Bulldogs.
What did you just say?
I said number 6 is the defending champion, 6-0 Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, if you're looking for controversy and if you're looking for a debate and an argument, then goddamn, do you have one right now?
Let's go.
What in the world? Now, okay, I need to wrap my head around what you just said with Georgia and putting the number 6 next to them. So I'm gonna take a breath here for a minute. Yeah, I got a lot of problems with this one here, buddy. First of all, USC is better than number 10. Their roster is better than number 10. To me, their schedule is. I would actually put Oklahoma State at number 10, even though they did have, obviously they beat Texas Tech. That was tied at 31, I believe, in the fourth quarter or late into the third quarter. So that was a pretty close game and really could have gone either way. So to me, Oklahoma State, I was a little surprised that they weren't as dominant in that game. Props to Texas Tech, but still, I think that one shouldn't have been as close as it was. So for that reason, I would actually put Oklahoma State at number 10. I can understand where you would potentially put USC maybe at number 9. And even in the AP top 25, they got bumped down from number 6 to number 7. They didn't really have a convincing win against Washington State. The game was tied at one point. Washington State even took the lead. USC, I don't know. They obviously have a lot of talent, but offensively, they just rely so much on Caleb Williams to make a play when the play breaks down. And he does that more often than not. But in reality, I think just their scheme in general, I would like to see them kind of have some just straight rhythm from play calling and not necessarily Caleb Williams having to create a play out of something broken happening, right? All the athleticism in the world and all the credit to him in the world, but offensively, I would like to just see a little more consistency with the actual play calling and execution of the plays. So I don't have a problem in USC dropping, but I think that they should be ahead of Oklahoma State. I believe you had Ole Miss. Where did you have Ole Miss?
Ole Miss is number 9.
Ole Miss is number 9. What can I say about Ole Miss here? Yeah, they whoop on Vanderbilt. I mean, it's Vanderbilt, so I can't really argue it there. I think you can 8, 9. That's kind of where they should be. UCLA probably deserves to have one of the, if not the biggest jump this entire rankings. I don't care if it's your rankings or if it's the AP top 25. Now, it was a home game, but to beat Utah, who was ranked at the time, what were they ranked? Were they 11th at the time?
Yep.
To beat Utah the way they did, I know it was a 10-point win, but the reason Utah got their last points was because of that pick 6 late in the game. So UCLA really came and showed out, and they have a really good, obviously, quarterback and running game tandem. So UCLA is a surprise. I know that's your team. I know you got the sweater on right now, but for this week compared to last week, I believe that they deserve to be where you correctly have them. So all the props in the world to UCLA, and all I got to say is I can't wait for USC UCLA. It's looking like we could potentially have a top 10 matchup of these two teams for the first time in a long time. So I'm hoping that for that sake, both these teams continue to play well there. Now I almost forgot about it for a minute because I had to calm myself down. Georgia at number 6. Now they whooped on Auburn, and Auburn is nowhere near the Auburn Tigers that we are used to or accustomed to seeing. Like that is no mistake. That's no secret. Georgia had easily no problem beating them. But Nick, number 6. So if I'm correct, you're going to tell me that Michigan, Clemson, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Alabama, all 5 of those teams are better than Georgia.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Jared, I think we should do it this way, because I can't really explain myself as much until I do my top 5. So let me answer and explain to you why I have 10 through 7, and then I'll give my top 5, and then we'll get into 6 through 1. Okay? So real quickly,
Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
USC compared to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has that big win against Will Levis and Kentucky. Okay? For me, that's more impressive than USC's, road win against Oregon State and their struggling win against Washington State at home, along with their 4 easy wins. Ole Miss has 5 easy games. So USC does technically have more impressive wins, but when you beat a top 15 team, which is what Kentucky was at that point, and I think with Will Levis, they still would be. Kentucky would be around that 10-11, status there if Will Levis plays in the game. So I'm not knocking them for losing their game against South Carolina. So I have to put Ole Miss there. I can understand if you want to put USC there because they do have an impressive road win against Oregon State, who, had probably the craziest win of the whole weekend at like 11:45 at night Pacific time, 2:45 a.m. Eastern time. Most people didn't see it, right? Go check out our Cover 2 podcast Twitter. We have the result of what happened there on that Twitter. But I can understand USC, Ole Miss, whatever. But it's close, and Ole Miss will have to play really tough teams later. So at this point, Ole Miss, they might start falling down the rankings a little bit, as in going lower in the rankings. But for now, they're there. UCLA, you already said it. They deserve to be there. Oklahoma State, you're really not high on Oklahoma State. So let me explain why I have them at number 7. They have 3 easy wins, a big road win against Baylor. Baylor is not shown to be a bad team yet. They have 2 losses, but there's plenty of great teams that have 2 losses. And it was a solid win against a solid Texas Tech team. Texas Tech went into Texas and was able to score multiple points on that Texas defense, something Alabama didn't do. So Texas Tech, I think you're not giving Texas Tech enough credit. They win at home by double digits. Nothing wrong there against a solid opponent, not a ranked opponent, but it's in that okay range as far as my rankings go. I forgot to preface this earlier. When I go over my rankings, I have bad wins, okay wins, big wins, and the same with losses. And sometimes there's okay/big wins. Road wins matter too. So, right there, that big road win at Baylor was very impressive, and that puts them ahead of UCLA, who has 4 easy wins, a big win against Utah at home, and a win that doesn't look as great. It was impressive against Washington, who ended up blowing it against a winless team on the road this week against ASU. So I had to give a little bit less credit to UCLA's record than originally expected. If Washington would have pulled it out against Arizona State, yeah, UCLA is probably up there ahead of Georgia, realistically. But so that's why I have Oklahoma State there. They were already there. They didn't do anything wrong. They did the same as USC, Ole Miss, and they did. And really, that's all I have to say about that. Now, let's go to the top 5. Once again, Georgia at number 6. Number 5 at 5-0, Tennessee. Number 4, 6-0, Ohio State. Number 3, 6-0, Michigan. Number 2, 6-0, Clemson. And number 1, the team that has talent for days and days and days, Alabama Crimson Tide. Let me explain these a little bit. Michigan, Ohio State, if you're wondering, we did win over this last week. Ohio State, up until this week, had not played a road game. Okay, they played a road game against a average at best Michigan State team, and they beat the shit out of it. Impressive, but Michigan's already done that twice against, in my opinion, better teams. They have 2 road wins versus Iowa and Indiana. They have a solid win against Maryland, who's a good team too. Maryland was a bad penalty call away from winning and going at 4-2 against Purdue. So Michigan just has the more impressive schedule so far. Michigan plays Penn State this week. Ohio State, when they play Penn State, when they play Michigan, they'll move up. For right now, they haven't not done enough to be ahead of Michigan. Clemson did nothing wrong this week, and Michigan and Ohio State didn't do anything more to pass them up. I explained that 4 easy wins for Clemson and 2 big wins against who I have at 14 and 15, Wake Forest and NC State. They beat Wake Forest on the road, too. So there's no reason Clemson to be below Michigan and Ohio State. They haven't done enough. And then Alabama at number 1. I know they could have lost to Texas A&M, but they play with their backup all game. And it's a rivalry game. It's a rivalry game between coaches. It can happen. Texas A&M beat Alabama before. They didn't. They called a bad play at the end of the game. They were 1 play away from winning, and they didn't. They didn't win. It was hard to judge that game because it was 2 backups playing each other, and if Alabama would have lost, I don't think they would have moved that much further down the rankings, in my opinion. But Alabama stays number 1. As far as Tennessee versus Georgia, or Michigan versus Georgia, or Ohio State versus Georgia, here's what Georgia's done. They have 4 easy wins, like much of these other teams. They have a blowout win against a very, very good Oregon team. But they have a really bad road performance against Missouri. They did nothing as far as that win against Auburn that you mentioned. Auburn is not a good team. They're one of the worst teams in the SEC this year. And they struggled against Kent State at home. Okay? Tennessee, 2 easy wins this year. Solid win against Florida. 2 solid road wins against LSU and Pitt. They've done nothing wrong. LSU has a more impressive resume right now than Georgia. They have more impressive win than Oklahoma State, than UCLA at this point, than Ole Miss and USC and TCU and Penn State as far as the undefeated teams. So, Jared, Tennessee's done more, and they looked really impressive and have looked really impressive the whole year. Georgia has looked like dog shit in 2 games this year against bad teams. Like, Missouri's not good. I think they're a little better than people think, but Georgia's supposed to be the national. Like, how the fuck is Georgia number 1 in the AP poll? I have no idea. Who are these writers? Who's making these rank? Like, I always thought too that the Associated Press was the one media that was as unbiased as possible, specifically with politics. You can't look at CNN and NBC and Fox News in the face anymore, right? You don't know. But the AP poll always reported down the middle. I guess, except for college football, because it's so biased towards the SEC. The SEC isn't that good this year. They're impressive, but they're not that good. Alabama's amazing. Tennessee is solid. Ole Miss is a good team. Kentucky, solid. LSU's not that good. It's just, yeah, that's what happened. Georgia hasn't done. They impressively beat Oregon at home, okay, without preseason, and they have done nothing since. They had that big blowout win against the number 13 team in the nation, who will lose to UCLA in 2 weeks. But they'll still be in the rankings. They'll still be in top 25. Still a good win, but they shit the bed 2 weeks in a row against Kent State and Missouri and could have lost both games.
Now, let me jump in. You've been talking and smacking and doing a lot here. I'm going to start from the top. Actually, I'm not going to go 5-1. I'm going to go 1-5. I'm okay with Alabama being up there as you currently have them. I think for the AP, I get it. They're playing with a backup, but still, it's Alabama. Like, their 3rd string backups are 5 stars, right? So this backup is also, he got playing time against Arkansas when Bryce Young originally injured himself, and then he's gotten some kind of mop-up duty time earlier in the year. So he's played. It's not like he hasn't played at all. I kind of would have expected and thought that Alabama could have had a bigger lead in that game. The fact that it was 24-20, I don't want to say alarming, because once again, they played with the backup quarterback, but I would have liked to have seen a little more cushion there. But I'm okay with Alabama being number 1. Georgia is clearly at least the second best team, right?
No,
When
that's
you,
not
yes,
true.
yes, they are. Yes, they
Not
are.
true.
Yes, they are. You blow out an Oregon team who has since then, right, proven that they are very good. So I think that blowout win only like moves up and increases. We say a lot of times when you have a big win against an opponent and then that opponent like continues to fall, that win doesn't look as good anymore. Well, because Oregon has kind of responded, I think that makes Georgia's win look even better. I will say the game against Missouri was shocking and like, what the hell, right? Like, I don't know if it was their first game on the road or not, true road game, but yes, I will give it to you. Georgia looked like crap and it very easily could have lost that game. Against Kent State, that one is a little bit of a head scratcher, but they still won 39-22. There was no way in hell Kent State was actually going to beat Georgia. So even though that should have been like 50-7, I'm actually going to give Georgia, not put them on the hook as much, because it was still a double-digit win. And I don't think that's the true Georgia team. So to me, Georgia still deserves to be number 2 because I don't think they've done that much to go from either 1 to 2 to 6 or wherever the hell you have them, right? I simply don't see that at all. Number 3, Clemson. I don't know what it is. I just don't like Clemson this year. And I think that's just my potential bias towards this team. But I'm not a Clemson hater. I just simply don't like Clemson. Like, good job. You whooped on Boston College. You beat Wake Forest. And I don't know what it is, man. There's something about Clemson to me. And I think I'm kind of projecting and looking ahead a little bit, right? I'm not necessarily focused on their current schedule. I'm saying if they do make it to the college football playoff, I don't really see them beating any potential team that will get in the college football playoff. Like if they go up against Georgia, no, I don't see Clemson beating Georgia. I don't see Clemson beating Alabama. I don't see Clemson beating Ohio State. I don't see Clemson beating Tennessee. So to me, and like I said, that might be my own bias. I think in this particular argument with Clemson, I'll let you win because you went a little bit more with the facts. I'm kind of just going more with the eye test and what I see from this team. And I just don't see this team being the dominant Dabo Swinney Clemson team that we have seen in the past that has gone up against the Alabamas of the world and knocked them off the top. So I'll admit it, I'm being a little biased here, but I would actually put Clemson at number 5. I would then have, who do I have left? Ohio State, Michigan.
Yep.
I'll give you, I think that Michigan should be ahead of Ohio State, and that's simply because Michigan has one extra road win. Like the fact that you have 5 straight home games for Ohio State, like whoever schedules that, good for you. Like the fact that Ohio State didn't have to travel for 5 weeks, I'm sure the players love that. But when it comes to the rankings and the strength of schedule and all that, that is hurting Ohio State currently. So I will say that I'm once again, just like USC and UCLA, I hope they keep playing well. I hope that Ohio State and Michigan keep playing well and they keep their top 5 rankings, because that at the end of the season will be a game for the ages. But I have Michigan as well over and ahead of Ohio State. I'll give you that one. But Georgia, you are drunk. I wish you should be drug tested for that one, because I'm not saying they don't need to be number 1. I'll put Alabama at number 1, but there ain't no way in hell that Georgia is number 6 right now.
The facts are the facts. Sir, Tennessee has done more. Michigan has done more. Ohio State has done more. Clemson's done more. It doesn't matter how. I mean, okay, but here's my thing. You talk so much shit on Clemson that you don't think they'll beat certain teams, right? Well, Clemson's style has been more impressive and has done more for them than Georgia's has this season. Georgia has the one win to start the season. Then they played cupcakes, and some of those cupcakes they didn't play well against. Like Ohio State kills everybody they play that they need to. Michigan kills everybody that they need to. Alabama, they kill teams that you shouldn't kill, you know? And Tennessee, they beat the shit out of LSU on the road. Like, I legitimately it's facts of the fact. I go based off the facts of what has happened. I see talent, and sometimes that can put a team ahead. But right now, factually, Clemson's beaten NC State and Wake Forest, great teams. Georgia has only beat Oregon and then struggled against two bad teams. These other teams haven't done that. They just haven't done that. So, I will say this: I was a little wrong on Tennessee last week with their Pittsburgh win. I forgot that Pittsburgh had lost. It was my one mistake, I'll admit. But those teams are solid. They're not bad teams. They may not end up in the top 25 rankings, but they're like 35, 25, right? Maybe 40. They're solid teams. Yeah, I love this top. I like top 15 for myself. And I'm telling you, this is what it's going to end up being. Now, let me say this. Okay, so in Ohio State, they play Iowa at home, of course, in 2 weeks. So Ohio State, don't be surprised, may drop in my rankings because they're just, number one, they're not going to play next week. So a team that wins might go ahead of them, right? And then they play Iowa, which is an impressive win on the road, not really at home. It's an okay win at home. So, until Ohio State plays Penn State, who I think will be a top 25 team at that point, they're not moving up on my rankings at all. So don't expect, but enjoy the wins, drink a lot if you're a Buckeyes fan during these games, but they're not moving up. Let me say this. I was anticipating last week's game a lot, okay? But, oh my God, are there some good games this week?
Tennessee and Alabama, baby. Tennessee, Alabama. That's where my eyes are going to be.
Oh, yeah. Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan, Penn State in the big house, USC going to Utah. I mean, these games, some of these games. Oklahoma State at TCU? Are you kidding me? NC State, if their quarterback's healthy, against Syracuse? I mean, Clemson at Florida State. Upset alert. Florida State's a good team, guys. Florida State's a good team. They struggled against the NC State defense in the second half. They were really impressive in the first half. That's a solid team that's not ranked. Okay, we have Mississippi State and Kentucky. If Will Levis comes back, oh, my God, Jared, I can't handle this. Then you got UCLA, Oregon in 2 weeks. These rankings are going to move around, baby. Don't take them too seriously. Yep, Jared, the minute Tennessee loses to Alabama, Georgia will move up. Okay?
What if Tennessee keeps it close, like within a touchdown?
Nah, you lose a game, Georgia goes ahead. Tennessee's a good team. I think they're a great team this year. But if you lose, you prove that at that point, you need a couple more wins. Now, Tennessee has a very, very difficult schedule. So with one loss, I could easily see them being ahead of Georgia or Oklahoma State or UCLA. But, you got to do what you got to do. They have solid wins. And who is Georgia's next opponent? Let's check this out. I think they play this week. I just want to.
Yeah, they got Vanderbilt at home.
Yeah. Okay. So they're not gonna. Georgia has Vanderbilt. Then 2 weeks later, they have Florida at home. Tennessee's already beaten that team. And then they play Tennessee. But Jared, maybe they will. Maybe they will stay at 6. I don't know.
If you keep them at 6 next week, we're cutting off this segment. There ain't no way in hell. I'm sorry. I can't. I'll let you get away with it for 1 week. But if you come back the same week next week and give the same gibberish, I'm making changes. I'm going to do my own top 15.
Okay. Hey, Jared, please make a top 15 next week.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to counter
that.
Yeah,
let's do it. Oh, this got so big. Yeah, there's so many games next week. I can't wait. Yeah. But yeah, I'll say this, Jared. If Alabama loses, they ain't going below Georgia. Say that. They're staying there. If Georgia's number 5, Alabama's number 4. Right? You can't. So I got to give the same thing to Tennessee. If Tennessee loses to Alabama, Alabama's number one team. Technically, Tennessee could get back to the national championship. They might be able to beat Michigan or Ohio State or Clemson. They might just be the number 2 team in the nation. So, really, that game it depends on the outcome. Like you said, if Alabama beats Tennessee pretty handily, yeah, they're moving down. And they're going to move down pretty far, probably. Below the UCLAs and the USCs and all these other teams, as long as those teams win. If USC beats Utah on the road, holy shit. Holy shit, are we going to get UCLA and USC, Battle of LA, 2 weeks in a row to see who goes to the national championship. Final four, maybe. Because this year they changed the Pac-12 championship game, thank God. So it doesn't have to be North versus South. It's the 2 best teams. So we might get DTR versus Caleb Williams 2 weeks in a row for the ship. Can't wait. Can't wait, Jared. We got a lot. We need to move on to baseball. But yeah, next week, that dueling top 15. Jared hates me that much with this Georgia pick that he's gonna do his own. I love it. Let's get to baseball.
I don't hate you. I'm just trying to help our viewers get a realistic look at what a top 5 will look like. That's all. But let's move on. We got baseball. Let's go.
Facts are the facts, and a win is a win. Celebrate with water bottles. Go crazy if you beat South Alabama or if you beat Utah. It does not matter. A win is a win for Georgia, but impressive wins are what gets you in the top 5 in Nick Nenad's legitimate college football ranking. Georgia number 1, make me sick. Makes me sick, AP poll.
Okay. I got nothing to say. I'm clearly not getting through to you. It's not the door. It's not ringing. It's like I'm knocking and no one's home. So let's just move on. It's fine. Let's move on.
So the MLB playoffs have already started. We had some craziness in the wild card games. We had the Seattle Mariners down 8-1 and come back to win 10-9 in Toronto. We had a 15-inning game at 0-0 that's ended with a walk-off solo home run. I think it was like 4 total runs scored in the 2 games. Very impressive pitching stats. That's the Cleveland Indians I'm talking about. You have the San Diego Padres go a full 3 with the New York Mets and eliminate the New York Mets. The New York Mets. Are you kidding me? Max Scherzer, 7 runs. Jacob deGrom.
I forgot my Padres hat. I need my Padres hat right now because you can best believe I will have to be going to a game when it switches and we get the Padres down here.
Ooh, big wins. And then we also have the Phillies upsetting the St. Louis Cardinals, ending Albert Pujols' career out of nowhere. Dominant pitching performances from Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler. That's just what happened in the wild card round. Now we got the division series. So the division series is set. In the American League, it's the New York Yankees as the higher seed versus the Seattle Mariners. We've seen this before. Seattle Mariners, 116 wins. Most wins ever in an MLB season. Lost their last playoff series in 2001 to the New York Yankees. Okay? And we're right back where we started. Right back where we started. Except New York is stable. And they have a guy that broke the home run record in the American League. And some say broke the all-time home run record, single season. 30 seconds after our podcast ended last week. Go check out the video. We have in the American League, we have the Cleveland Guardians, a team that doesn't hit home runs. Great pitching, small ball. They are taking on the Houston Astros. See, Jared sneezed.
Sorry,
I did. Because the Houston Astros are not cool. They're not a cool team. Remember, they cheated. They screwed my Dodgers. That's an interesting series. Astros, the most underrated team in the MLB right now. I don't know why people are not talking about them as one of the best. Then you have the National League. You have the Atlanta Braves, who stole the season from the New York Mets. My God, did they send some Mets fans to frenzy last week? And then the San Diego Padres put the nail in the coffin. Juan Soto with a little double down the line, make it 6-0. You know. And then you have, and they're taking on the Phillies, and then you have Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the San Diego Padres. Boy, Jared, would this have been a series if Fernando Tatis hadn't taken steroids, but he did. So much to talk about here. But, you know, it's a division series. I'm not going to give you a full playoff. I'll give you my World Series champ. But there's a lot of things that can happen. There's pitching staffs that can go down on stuff. But I'll start with Dodgers-Padres, okay? The Padres have used 3 of their top pitchers already. So Mike Clevenger gets the ball against whoever the hell you want to put out at starting pitcher for the Dodgers, because everybody's good. You know, and I think that's going to be the difference in this series. I think the Padres, not only do the Padres not have as good of a hitting roster as the Dodgers, who are led by Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Trey Turner, but their pitching staff is good, but it's not great. And there's not enough arms. And with Musgrove possibly not even starting in the series, I don't like the chances of the Padres beating the Dodgers, who have Julio Urias, who could win the NL Cy Young, NL ERA leader. Tony Gonsolin, one of the best pitchers this year. Clayton Kershaw, dominant down the stretch, one of the best pitchers of all time. Tyler Anderson. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Throw in Dustin May for a couple innings if you want. So I think the biggest thing here is, Jared, you know, Dodgers are better at hitting. Padres have probably the better bullpen. Starting pitching staff. Not only do I think the Dodgers have a better one, but the number one guys for the Padres ain't starting until at least game 2 and probably game 3 in Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. So I think they're kind of screwed. And that's the product of not winning the division. That's the product of having your dumbass shortstop take steroids. They will lose because of Fernando Tatis. That's why they'll lose. Now, the Dodgers were the best team in baseball this year, too. So you're just running into a horrible team. But, you know, Padres did what they had to do and, you know, didn't beat the Mets in the standings, which I think that was the only way that you had to avoid the Dodgers. And they did. And so they'll get eliminated. Staying in the NL. Braves and Phillies, similar story here. Braves, better roster overall than the Phillies. I think the top 2 starters, though, for the Phillies in Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola are better than the top 2 pitchers on the Atlanta Braves. But those guys, again, they won't play until at least game 2, until at least game 3. So I think Braves steal game 1. Maybe this goes 4. But I can't imagine the Braves losing this after. And they're also the hottest team in baseball after what they did to the Mets. They have full gears rolling. New York Yankees. I'll go to Guardians and Astros. Come on. Astros ain't losing. Okay. Astros have a really, really good pitching staff. Justin Verlander. Yadier Alvarez. Luis Garcia. Lance McCullers. You know, the Guardians, Shane Bieber will win a game for the Guardians, but that's probably it. You know.
Wait, hold on. I'm confused right now. We've got it's Seattle and Houston. It's the Mariners and Astros, and then it's the Guardians and the Yanks.
My goodness, you are right.
You had
What
me
did I see that?
So
I got someone.
I love how you bring up the 2001, you know, last time Mariners had best record and all that stuff, but that would have to happen in the next round because we currently have. Yeah, well, okay, then you're projecting, which is cool. You're allowed to do that. You just got to tell the public that you are projecting. But right now, we got the Mariners and Astros, and then the Guardians will be playing the Yanks.
Yeah, okay, I apologize for that. Jared, thank you for editing me there. So Astros, Mariners, excuse me. The Mariners, there's something about it this year. I think there's something about the Astros that makes it, it's not cheated. They're a great team. But the Mariners are there to play against an AL West opponent, a rival. They're going to get that game at Safeco, most likely, That first game since 2001. First game since 2001 at Safeco. It's going to be fucking nuts. It'll be 1-1 going into that series. It'll be 1-1. Seattle stealing that game against the Blue Jays in Game 2. It saved it made it so that this 5-game series between the Astros and Seattle will go down to a Game 5. And literally, whoever pitches better, whoever makes the plays will win. I think these teams are like right there as far as when you look at talent. I think the Astros do have a little bit more talent. But again, the top two guys for the Mariners, Robbie Ray, he was the Cy Young winner last year. Okay, he's going in there. He can win the ball game. Who is it? Luis Castillo might be the best pitcher in baseball. He can go toe-to-toe with Justin Verlander. He won't Game 1, but he could. He'll win Game 2 for him. Then you got Robbie Ray going Game 3. I think this is where their pitching advantage later in the series will actually help them. So, Jared, I'm going with the upset. Seattle Mariners are beating the Houston Astros in 5. The fact that they came down from 9-1 in Toronto, that's a loud stadium. They'll go 1-1 in Houston. They'll go 1-1 in Seattle, and then back to Houston. No cheating this year. Seattle Mariners beat Houston Astros. And then similar with the Yankees, they'll do enough to beat the Guardians. Okay, I'd Seattle beating the Yankees easy. By 4 games. The Yankees are a weird team because their pitching staff is good, but it's not like top tier. Eric Cole's had struggles in the playoffs. Luis Severino is not healthy. They trade away Jordan Montgomery. And then Aroldis Chapman quits. He quit.
Yeah, I don't understand that one. That was a little.
It's simple as this, Jared. They said, "Hey, Aroldis, we need you at the workout." He goes, "I'm not coming unless you guarantee a spot." They said, "Well, we'll guarantee you a spot at home." Fuck you. You're not on the roster. He quit. So I don't like that. And I don't like their bullpen that much. But the Guardians are just not talented. Okay? They've used their top pitchers. Garrett Cole will likely win a game. You need home runs in the playoffs. There's a crazy stat they revealed. It was in either on Friday or Saturday in the Guardians game. That teams that hit more home runs had like an 800 winning percentage or something like that in the playoffs. The last, I think it's from 2016 to 2021. Majority of teams that hit more home runs in a game won the games. So Guardians don't hit home runs. They're not going to beat the Bronx Bombers, okay? But that will be 4, and then Seattle will beat the Yankees too.
So you're saying we will have a Seattle-New York matchup,
yep,
and a LA-Atlanta matchup. And the funny thing to me about LA is you got Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers going up against his old team when really he should be in Atlanta right now. Like if you think about it, I think a lot of people forget that, but he should be in Atlanta. I know there's a lot of controversy going on with all that stuff and Atlanta not offering him a contract and all that crap, but that would be an interesting moment there specifically for Freeman if they make it that far. I don't think you're giving my Padres, and I say my Padres because I currently live in San Diego and they are my adopted team, any credit here. Like, did anyone give the Padres a chance to beat the Mets? Because I wasn't hearing it. I wasn't even hearing it here in San Diego.
We just because of podcasting and college football and NFL going on, it was impossible to record a podcast about the wild card going on, and it was even harder to watch most of the games, right? But if I could have gone on the podcast, I would have said Padres are winning. They're winning the series. Yeah. So, because the Mets, it's just the Mets are the Mets. When they blew it against the Braves, I was like, holy shit, they're out. They're out. Okay. And then Padres. Yeah, Darvish I knew would dominate. And then you got DeGrom, of course he's gonna win. And then Musgrove. Musgrove's their best pitcher. And he's not pitching until at least Game 3 against LA. It really doesn't matter. If Musgrove was going Game 1, It's a pitching duel. Maybe the Padres win. If Darvish goes game 2, pitching duel, maybe the Padres win. But that's not the way it's going. Mike Clevenger sucks. Okay, he's not a playoff pitcher. He's not very good. And the Dodgers will win easy game 1. Darvish will be tough, but they could still win game 2. And if you throw Musgrave in there, it's probably too late. Oh, no, you know what? San Diego guy, they'll win in San Diego. And then 4. Yeah, it'll be 4. It'll be 4. It'll be 4.
So are we gonna get a LA New York World Series?
No, we're getting LA and Seattle. Hunch right now is that the Mariners will go on this amazing run. I don't like the Yankees juju. I don't like that their season turned into, let's hope this guy hits 2 home runs and 90 at-bats to end the season. They tried to ruin college football multiple times, 2 weeks in a row for me. Made me turn on the TV to a game that didn't matter to watch Aaron Judge. All respect, all rise. But I think Seattle's going to do it. They're gonna match up the pitching well enough. I think Garrett Cole will blow it in New York against the Mariners. I see both. Seattle will go 5 with Houston. They'll go 7 with New York, and then they're not beating the Dodgers. But so yeah, my official prediction is the Dodgers will win the World Series somehow. I can see them going 7 in Atlanta. I see it being very similar to their 2020 World Series run, where they have a relatively easy first matchup in the division series. But it's literally the same. It's the Padres. But the Padres are better now, but the Dodgers are also better. And then they'll go 7 with Atlanta, of course, and just kill me every night and make me want to just hide in a corner, and then they'll have an easier matchup in Seattle, who's undermanned and has used all of their guys every game and won't have guys ready for game 1 and game 2, and Dodgers will win the World Series probably in Seattle. Will.
Okay. All right. We have to get that on record.
Jasmine, what do you think happens? I know you don't pay attention to baseball as much, so I wanted to kind of give my full MLB predictions. But what do you think happens? Do you disagree with me on anything? I know we've been long on the podcast, but do you disagree with me vehemently on anything so far on the MLB?
No, I can't. Obviously, I'm rooting for San Diego to win. That's because I literally am at less than a 10-minute walk to Petco Park. So I would love for the Padres to advance and better chance for me to see them. But in reality, the Dodgers, there's a reason why they have the best record in the league, top to bottom. I don't think there's any one team that can match up on paper against them. And when we get into these series that start to go 5 and 7, yeah, you may be able to get 1 game, maybe 2 games on them. But in a 7-game series, I don't really see this Dodgers team, losing 4 games or 3 games. So I do have the Dodgers winning. And then I personally would just love to see the LA-New York rivalry. That would just be amazing and great to see from a fan perspective. The reason I won't root for the Mariners is because I really am an Angels fan growing up in Orange County. So I can't sit here and root for the Mariners, even though I do really like them and I think they have a young and upcoming team. I think the Mariners are going to be good for the next probably 3 to 5 years, so they're not going anywhere. But I think going up against the Astros are still a juggernaut. Whether they cheat or not. So I actually see the Astros winning this series. I don't think the Mariners get a chance or an opportunity to even play the Yankees. I think the Yankees are going to beat the Guardians. Just like you said, the Guardians to me are not good. They play too much small ball, and they don't have that firepower to when you need a 3-run home run. I don't think you can really count on the Guardians to do that. Funny thing, did you see on ESPN when this series, I forget if it was this series or if it was the beginning of the wild card round, when someone fucked up, someone did bad, and they put, I think it was like Rays versus Indians. Did you see that? Someone got fired. Love that, man. Someone got fired at ESPN for that. Right. So trying to relive the old Indians days there, but that's not going to work. So yeah, no, I think the Yankees will take care of business of the Guardians, and they will match up against the Astros. I think it will be the Dodgers and the Braves, and that will be an interesting matchup. And then I'm going with what we've seen before. I'm going Dodgers and Astros in the World Series, and I'm going to give it to the Dodgers to bring it home again.
Yeah, it would be fun to play New York or Houston because to have a
Right.
New York LA World Series with what Aaron Judge did. I mean, I can almost guarantee there's been more eyes on baseball than there has the last couple of years. And so to throw the Yankees and Dodgers against each other, everyone knows the Dodgers are great. The Yankees, impressive with Aaron Judge, probably the most popular player in the world right now. That was impressive. And then to get the Dodgers to play the Astros and get revenge, that would be awesome. You know what I'm saying? So I would, of course, like to play the Guardians in the World Series as a Dodger fan, but that's probably not going to happen. And so I think Seattle will make a run. Again, we will reevaluate on next week's podcast. The championship series starts on Tuesday at the earliest, so we will record a podcast before the championship series starts. So we will talk about what has happened in the division series, and I will give a more thorough prediction based on the actual outcomes. If I am wrong, which I could be, I want to reevaluate and talk. But if it's the same, I probably will stick with the same. But injuries could happen, all that stuff. So next week we will talk about championship series, but soft prediction: Seattle versus LA. You got Houston and LA. Can't go wrong with either of those. All right, Jared, we got to end this podcast. We've been going long, but it's a massive show. Again, next week, top 15 versus top 15. Unbelievable. The Cowboys play the Eagles in Philly. We'll be talking about that to start the show. Unless there's an attack on the United States or something like that, and then we won't talk about the Cowboys. So besides a nuclear attack from Russia on the U.S., we most likely will be talking about the Cowboys and Eagles to start the podcast, along with other NFL news. Full championship series prediction, division series review. Another massive show next week, Jared. I'm excited. Take it away. End this thing.
Yeah, no, we're done. Listen, Cowboys 4-1. Sorry about your Cardinals loss this week. Big game next week. We will be starting the show with my Cowboys. Let's go, baby. I'm Jared Smith. That's Nick Nenad. We're wrapping it up. Go Cowboys. We'll see y'all next week.
See you next week.